When I first began this project and asked, who could I speak with to learn about homelessness in San Francisco, the reply was always the same. Go meet Jennifer Friedenbach, Executive Director of the Coalition on Homelessness. Jennifer has been working in San Francisco's Tenderloin for over 20 years. One of their projects is Street Sheet, the oldest street newspaper in the country. Additionally, she has written more editorials on homelessness than any other contributor to the San Francisco Chronicle. Here's Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Friedenbach. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition on Homelessness, and I have been working here for about 20 years. You know, what keeps me going and is pretty much the same thing that brought me here to begin with is that this issue, homelessness, is where all the different oppressions intersect. When we look at the homeless population, we see an overrepresentation of African Americans. We see a large percentage of members of the LGBT community. We see disabled people. We see elderly. We see children. We see everyone who is facing oppression reflected in the homeless population. It's also a place where it is still okay to hate. When we look at newspaper articles, when we look at how homeless people are talked about, they're often referred to as trash, they're referred to as junkies, they're referred to as basically less than human. So what we have today is homelessness in a situation that's lasted for several decades now. Through a whole lot of bad policy decisions, we have chosen to create a homeless crisis in this country and in this city. We've chosen this by not investing in housing, by not replacing the 74% massive cuts to the federal government. We're choosing this by instead putting our resources into criminalizations, into sweeping homeless people out of areas, into court costs, into jailing, into citing, into arresting, instead of investing in housing. As a result, here in San Francisco, for example, we have a lot of folks that are living with the housing crisis. We have over 3,300 children. We have thousands of elderly and disabled people. We have folks who are employed who are living without housing. We have folks who are struggling to find employment, who've given up trying to find employment, who are seeing their health deteriorate rapidly because they're living outside. Because homelessness itself is a negative indicator on so many different health concerns. You know, for folks who catch a cold and they're living outside, it can turn into pneumonia. People with infections can end up with lost limbs. Folks can expect their life expectancy to drop by more than 20 years. They're 3 to 4 times more likely to pass away from the same things that kill other people at a much smaller rate. And so it's a bad situation all around. And no matter what we're talking about in terms of homelessness, as we continue to blame people for being homeless, to say that they're choosing to be homeless, we are spending more and more money keeping them homeless. Because as their health deteriorates, that costs even more. So if we were to simply house, if we were to simply invest in folks, we would save money. Folks who have mental illnesses would see their mental health stabilizing. Folks who were once unable to find job will be much more able to connect with regular employment if they have a regular place to sleep. Folks whose children have been suffering, who have been traumatized and unable to be at grade level, once they're housed, see their situation change so dramatically where now kids are able to keep up to grade level, they're able to have a place to study, they're able to have the stability that they need to thrive in an educational environment. And so for us, this is a manufactured situation, and it's human-made, and it's also can be solved by humans so easily. It just takes political will, it takes commitment, it takes follow-through. We've seen this happening in a number of different places. When the federal government recently invested in solving homelessness for veterans, we're seeing nationwide thousands and thousands and thousands of veterans successfully moving off the streets. Of course, no duh. They're being offered housing, so obviously they're able to move off the street. So this is not an intractable problem. This is a solvable problem, and we just have to make it a priority. You know, I got into this work really kind of randomly. I wanted to do social justice work. I applied as a truck driver for a food bank down in San Mateo County, and they offered me a job as a secretary, and it happened to be a job share with the Hunger and Homeless Action Coalition of San Mateo County, which no longer exists. And once I started doing the work, I really realized how much more work is to be done on this issue. I got really committed to this issue. For me, home is really important. I've been blessed and never experienced homelessness, and I've had very stable living environments. And so it's really, for me, it really hits at my heart, like looking at what it means to people to not have a safe place to call home. You know, I can't go to sleep at night if my door's not locked, for example. You know, I'm gonna have to get out of bed, make sure it's locked. Sometimes I think it's locked, it's not locked, and it is locked, but it's hard to fall asleep. And so, you know, I know for folks that I work with every day, they don't have safe and decent housing, what it means. And what it means when they have children, and I have children, where we're able to sit around the kitchen table and talk about what happened that day, where we're able to share food, where my kids are able to kind of let it out. You know, I walk into shelters where it's crowded with children and families, and the kids never have that place where they're able to just kind of relax and let it out. And any frustrations, if they got bullied that day, or, you know, anything that happens, they're always uncomfortable. They're always in a public space. Everything that they do is publicly scrutinized. They're parented by a million different people, sometimes in positive ways, sometimes in negative ways. They're exposed to trauma, things that they would never be exposed to had their parents had a choice. And so it, you know, as a mother, it hits me really hard as well. And, you know, I think that, you know, for here as a San Franciscan, you know, we supposedly have a progressive city. It's not okay to hate a lot of people in San Francisco. It's not okay to hate Muslims. It's not okay to hate Jews. It's not okay to hate queers. It's not okay to hate women, blacks, immigrants. All of those are off. So the politicians who are trying to move forward these kind of negative agendas, they need someone to hate, and it's been homeless people. So, you know, for the past couple decades that I've been doing this work here in San Francisco, I've seen politician after politician use homeless people as a scapegoat in order to get elected, to use them as a wedge issue. And then I've seen the result of that, which is people coming into my office that have been beat up while they were asleep, been severely injured, because it has unleashed you know, this hatred in people. It has, the hate speech has devalued them as humans, and they are treated as less than human as a day-to-day basis. And so as I look around San Francisco, we have a lot more work to do. We have a lot more people on the streets, and that keeps me committed to doing this until at one point, hopefully, we can solve homelessness, and I can just hang out with my kids or work in a bookstore or do something more relaxing. But until that day, I'm digging in with my teeth and with my nails, and putting the blood, sweat, and tears that it hopefully will take to at some point shift this around and make sure everybody has a safe and decent place to call home. So in order to solve homelessness, we have to create exits out of homelessness, but we also have to close off the entrances into homelessness. And so that really is about keeping people in their homes. Today in San Francisco, we have so many San Franciscans that are losing their homes. Many of them are ending up homeless. Evictions are the driving factor in homelessness right now. So there's some really simple things that we can do as a city to make sure that San Franciscans stay in their homes and stay in their rent control apartments. We need to make sure that if, you know, one of the income earners is out of work for a bit, that they have access to rental assistance to keep them in their homes. We need to make sure that if they're being evicted for bogus reasons, that they have access to legal counsel. We need to make sure that all tenants in San Francisco know what their rights are, so that particularly vulnerable people, you know, the people who are overrepresented in evictions are also the people that are overrepresented in homelessness. And so, you know, the non-English speakers, African Americans, families with kids, you know, everyone who is extremely poor, we need to do outreach to and make sure they know their tenant rights, so that they have and that they have access to the resources that they need to stay in their homes. And this is critical, and this is homeless prevention is a critical component in any plan to address homelessness.
put the responsibility for the homeless under DPW, the Department of Public Works, I felt that we officially became trash, because that's what DPW, no disrespect to them, but that's what they do. That's their job. And that's how the mayor views us. And he's attacking us daily now. I have to move sometimes 4 times during the night because they come and spray this water, which I've been told under other circumstances is toxic to humans. They spray it on the homeless. So we move our stuff 3 and 4 times a night, and then people wonder, why we don't get more done or something. It's a very hard life.
I mean, it's quite obvious for homelessness, and that a problem of homelessness is housing. Low-income housing, the government increasing their investment in providing low-income housing. We see that as one major solution to homelessness. As what happens to homeless people most of the time, especially in these areas are being gentrified, in these downtown areas, we've been criminalized, constantly criminalized. As Kat was talking about earlier, it's against the law to exist for a homeless person, basically. You can't. Necessary functions for a human being, like sleeping, resting, lying down, and in some cities you can't feed homeless people, eating. Those are life-sustaining activities that we exist by. And those are being taken from us. They're being criminalized. It's being made against the law for me to sit and sleep, share food. And so basically my existence is being outlawed.
In San Francisco and in the country as a whole, there's 6 empty units of housing for every homeless person. It's a lack of humanity and caring about individuals that really keeps us homeless. Because I don't need a purpose in life. I don't need education, and I don't need told how to get a job. I worked for the federal government for 25 years and then had my own consulting business after that. I know how to do those things. What I need a job and I need housing. And those are, there's really no path to that. It's very difficult. Once you're here.
We could also redirect resources we're using right now on criminalization. Instead of having police respond, which in some districts it's 30% of their police responses are responses to homeless people. So if we redirected that, had outreach workers respond, built up our system so folks had places to stay, where if we had enough housing, we'd have an emergency system that was truly responsive. I would also invest heavily in our mental health treatment system. We have seen it decimated, and this has happened over and over again. We think it's really bad, and then it gets cut some more. So there's a lot of work on our mental health treatment system that needs to happen. We have to expand our crises capacity. We have to expand our residential treatment. One of the things I would do is I would halt the building of a new jail, and I would use that land and that $500 million they got set aside to build that new jail, and instead invest in a community-based mental health treatment center that included a residential facility, that included a crises clinic for folks who are in psychiatric crises, and really massively expanded access to outpatient treatment as well, which is also backed up. It takes like 6 months for people to even get in to see a psychiatrist. These are all basic components of poverty abatement. And the other basic component is, of course, income. And so we need to make sure that people have access to jobs. And probably, if you look at San Francisco homeless policy, their worst area, the area that they invest in the least, is around creating employment for folks and employment opportunities. And we have a little bit through our public assistance programs, but nowhere near enough. We want to make sure that for those people who can work, that we're creating living wage jobs for them, and there's plenty of work to do. San Francisco's, Department of Public Works could use a lot more staff. We need a lot of more gardeners in our Park and Rec department. We need a lot more. We would could really expand our peer resources for people with mental illnesses. There's a lot of opportunity there to create jobs and make sure that people have living wage jobs. And so those would be the basic components. Would be making sure people had the jobs, the housing, the health care, and we would move away from our current reliance on criminalization as a way to manage the problem.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm often misunderstood, rarely given the attention or the appreciation I crave. And my reaction is to continue on. My faith is my purpose. My heart's always giving.